Hello, everyone, and welcome to Frenn Diagram. This is the podcast where two friends catch up and find common ground between their favorite media. I'm Remy.
I'm Kat, and today we will be discussing our Frenn favorite, Alex Garland's Civil War. Warning, spoilers ahead.
In the text of the film, they say the president is a fascist, and that's one thing to note, and that he's disbanded the FBI, and that he's in his third term, and obviously checks and balances have been dismantled in this version of the United States. And the main oppositional forces they're called the Western Forces, I think, which is Texas and California mostly. And I know a lot of people felt like they were dunking on Alex Garland in that alliance is preposterous and blah blah blah, but I think in the interview I was listening to with Alex, his response was very magnanimous. He put it very delicately and politely, but basically he was like, if you're getting caught up on Texas and California working together, you might not be thinking about these problems at a large enough scale. Like, if you can't imagine Texas and California working together, then you might not be imagining a issue that is so large that two of the wealthiest and best equipped states in the United States would feel compelled to work together to overcome it. Yeah. I think he's in a way saying, you're thinking too small if you're thinking this is impossible. And again, it's a warning of don't think so small, don't think so in such a separatist way. Think about actual political systems and what could be happening to make what could be so bad that they're working together. That's what happened in this world.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of the states themselves, I was wondering if you've given any more thought to the scene with Jesse Plemons' character and the subtext where they're discussing which states each of them comes from. And the fact that based on the states that he is saying those are good states, if you look at the map that was put out, he says Colorado's a good state. And he says that Missouri's a good state.
And those are both loyalist states.
Does not acknowledge Florida when Joel says that he's from Florida, which is a separate alliance, which is really interesting. I think that was a really interesting choice to make that character who does vile things.
Yeah, he's standing next to a mass grave, just for context. Yeah.
On our journalists' team. That's the side. Well, on the I wouldn't say they're team.
On a. I wouldn't say the journalists are on a team exactly.
I think that's fair, but I think that they are aligned more with the loyalist side of the equation than the other side, because when they meet up with the other journalists, Joel is calling them entrenched and he's having a conflict with them because of that.
Okay, well, I can't remember if this is an idea that Scott brought up when we were discussing it after, but I wonder if Joel was having conflict with the Western Forces journalists simply because they were embedded journalists, not because they were embedded with anyone with who they were embedded with particularly, but just the fact that they weren't straight up unembedded, completely objective journalists. So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
It could have been just because they were embedded, period. I don't know if that was meant to be opposition to the Western Forces, because I didn't detect any specific sympathies toward the president himself from our court journalists.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah, I think, yes, my understanding of the conflict is becoming clearer now.
I believe the Western Forces were deposing the president.
You're right. No, you're right. I just had a misunderstanding. All right. Scratch everything. Jesse Plemons is the bad guy. Yeah, no, I thought that scene was particularly interesting because I think that's where we get our best understanding, though, of the alliances and how serious that has become and the consequences of not being from the correct state or country. But yeah, that scene will definitely stick with me for a very long time.
Yeah, I think that was my favorite scene in the movie, if I had to choose just one. The scene with Jesse Plemons, just for how successful it was at building tension, how immaculate his performance was in being completely calm, but very sinister, but also sort of arrogantly casual. He pitched it exactly right, but in such an understated way. And the stakes of that scene were incredibly high, and the outcome was surprising. And overall, that was definitely my favorite part. And then it kicked off my favorite stretch of the film, which is the final stretch, which was the final assault on DC. Just as like a big collection, as like a final act, I would say, was my favorite act. So yeah, I particularly liked when things were ramped up, but they weren't that intense the whole time. It was definitely a crescendo to the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you had to pick a favorite, could you pick one?
My favorite scene? Oh, yeah. I hate this scene because I was ugly crying the whole time, but I really love when Sammy's in the backseat of the car, like looking out and up. I just love that visual because there are like these embers coming down and he doesn't look like he's in a ton of pain or anything, like he's about to die. And he's just saved all of his friends from this like horrible person and fulfilled his purpose. And like he knew that he was a liability the whole time. And you're just like realizing all of these things about Sammy's motivations for coming with them in the first place. Like I think he totally wanted to just like protect them the whole time and be there. Do you think so? I do. Yeah. Anyways, that was a very sad scene. And I haven't cried that hard at a movie in a very long time. Like a very, very long time. And never in a theater like that. Like just fucking sobbing. Like I was... Scott's jacket he was wearing like a black jacket and it had salty stains on it from where my tears had dried. I cried so hard I gave myself a headache for the rest of the day. But I just thought it was really it was the most beautiful moment for me, and I felt so much in that moment. But it was not in, like, you know how I am about movies that are sad or movies that are really emotionally charged. Like, I don't want to watch them again. I don't want to experience that emotion again. But I would watch Civil War again in a heartbeat. I would go back to the theater and re-experience all of those emotions because they were meaningful to me and they were worth the pain of watching them. And I don't know, that was like the moment where I realized that that movie was like something very special to me.
I'm really glad you feel that way.
Yeah. Also, Sammy's my BFF. I love him.
Sammy was really cool.
The best character.
Yeah, I really like Sammy. I think personally my favorite, well, I don't know if I'm conflating the two. I really like Kirsten Dunst's character, and also she was my favorite performance. I thought she was also very good with a very restrained...
Yes.
Not a muted performance, but it was not a big performance. It was really...
It was heavy. Her performance was very heavy.
But she did such a good job just conveying... I don't know. It's just... That whole monologue about I thought I was sending a warning.
Yeah.
And just seeing how tired and dismayed,
Yes.
but remaining objective to the best of her abilities, she was, like, watching all of this shit unfold and capturing it with unrelenting dedication, but still being beleaguered by failing to prevent it. And she captured all of that so well with such little fanfare.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was absolutely incredible, and the standout performance in my mind, for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I really like the scene where she's at the conference hotel, or I in my mind, it's like a conference center where all
in the
of the
beginning-ish
journalists
part.
are staying, and she's in the bathtub, just having this like quiet, heavy moment where she knows that she's about to go out and witness horrible things, and she's so tired already.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like you just know the character. Like, I feel like she portrayed a gravity, and there were just so many moments where she was very present on the screen, but very understated, if that makes sense. So, like, that moment, I also really like the moment where the young girl that's traveling with them, Jessie, is taking photos after a conflict, and she's like up standing on an upper level, and they're making eye contact, but she's just observing and watching this young person. I don't know. It just felt she felt very present in that scene, even though we were just like glancing up to her every once in a while, you know?
I was just going to mention that montage, actually. That's like the De La Soul montage that happens after a unit that they were observing wins a location and captures prisoners and just summarily execute the prisoners. And we're watching each person's reaction to what is going on. And her, I don't want to call it a lack of reaction, but her face in that montage as she's observing Kaylee Spaney's character taking in the entire thing, I think that was a really, really standout part of her performance. And I loved the way that sequence was cut, and I think it gave the audience a ton of information about each of these characters without any dialogue whatsoever.
Yeah, her performance was absolutely incredible. I really liked Joel, and I thought the actor playing him, Wagner Moura, did a very good job portraying this character. And I find myself thinking about the contrast of him and Kirsten Dunst's character, because Kirsten Dunst has this like very muted, reserved, almost cold performance throughout the film, and he's very warm, and he's passionate and able to turn off the like gravity of the situation at times. Like, he's able to laugh, and he's smoking joints, and he's like comforting Jessie and trying to be a source of comfort for her and a resource for her emotionally. But when he also breaks down, it's so much more explosive and overstated. And I really like that contrast. I'm not sure why I like it so much, or like what it means to me, but I found his character really compelling, and he felt very real, and you can't just be so, it's not adaptive to be so deeply exhausted from your profession in the way that Kirsten Dunst's character is. And it felt more realistic in some ways for him to be like, okay, and now I am turning that off, and I'm going to be a normal human being for a while, you know?
Yeah, and it also just serves to show that not everyone in this profession is like the stoic ideal that Kirsten Dunst's character is showing. Some people are energized by conflict, and yeah, that might be kind of sick in a certain way, but that's how a lot of people are about a lot of the media they consume or a lot of the jobs that they carry out. So it was a way of acknowledging that kind of duality of media coverage, and that sometimes the sensationalism is there, no matter how like honorable the pursuit on paper, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. And that character just like loses everything. Like he loses almost all of his colleagues throughout the film, and he has so much to grieve by the end of it. I think we see the most emotional change in him from start to finish, and I think that worked well.
I think Kaylee Spaney's character has a pretty broad arc by design.
Yeah.
In that she starts off really green and inexperienced and definitely quite passionate about photojournalism, but from a more of an outsider perspective. But the more she progresses along with this team, she clearly becomes absolutely hooked on the feeling of capturing these images in the middle of a conflict, and becomes unable to, it like basically seems to be like addicted to that feeling in a way. So to me, she might have been like the most apparent change over the course of the film. But
yeah, I think addiction is a good way to put that, because she just, I resent her character a little bit.
She's completely reckless, and I think that recklessness comes from her inability to stop what she's doing once she gets a taste of it.
Yeah. But and we also see, I wish I could remember the first time that they're going into conflict and they're entering that building and they're about to take prisoners. They keep showing her like trying to like run ahead a little bit, and Joel is like keeping a grasp on her vest. And it's mostly to like pull her out of the way if something dangerous is happening, but it's also to keep her on a leash so that she doesn't put herself out there in a dangerous situation. And it's almost like the loaded gun phenomenon, where when you're watching a movie and they keep showing you guns and you're like, oh gosh, that gun's gonna go off one of these days. Yeah. It's like that, where you're like, oh, they're not holding her back anymore. They're not feeling this like sense of responsibility to keep her from getting herself hurt. And then that like causes our main character to die. And you just like, you see it coming from a mile away. And the foreshadowing was done very well with that, I thought. But I don't know. I didn't find her character arc very satisfying personally, but I think that was just my take on her. And I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's satisfying. I'm just saying it was an arc. But yeah, I feel frustration with her character's choices as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's like she gets more experience, but she doesn't get less green to me. She doesn't get like she doesn't get any more careful throughout the film.
No, she doesn't get more careful. She just gets more insatiable, which obviously is quite a dangerous combination. And doesn't turn out well. Yeah.
I was wondering what you thought of the last photo they show before they go to credits.
I thought that photo looks like a photo you'd see on the news if it's a military initiative in some other country that you've never been to or you've never heard of, you wouldn't think about twice. I think that's the point of that photo.
Yeah. I thought it was a very surprisingly unsettling photo. And an unsettling note to leave the film on. And I really liked it. I mean, I didn't like the photo. I liked that moment and the fact that I looked at it and I was like, ooh, that's giving me weird feelings in my gut that I don't love that vibe, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it accomplishes exactly what it sets out to do, which is to unsettle the viewer in the grounding of that type of imagery in a room that we've seen a million times on the news, the Oval Office.
Yeah. It was a great movie. I would like to go see it again, for sure.
Yeah, I would certainly watch it again. I'd definitely see it in the theater if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and also in that interview I was listening to, Alex did clarify that he's still very interested in screenwriting. He's just not interested in directing for the foreseeable future. But he was by no means announcing his retirement.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, he said much the same on the Associated Press interview that I listened to as well.
I think
he was like, wow, people really just ran with it.
I think that's exactly how we read those comments anyway. So
yeah.
No surprise there, but just happy for Alex.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad that he's going to keep making great things, even if he's not the one directing. Like, his screenwriting is fantastic. So, yeah, it makes me want to watch a lot of other Alex Garland movies.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Alex Garland movie?
Directed or written or anything?
Either.
I mean, Ex Machina is just pretty unbeatable, I would say.
Yeah, that's mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sunshine is also fantastic.
I was wondering if you would mention that. I know you're a big fan of that one.
Yeah, that was my first Alex Garland film that I saw. So I think it has a special place in my heart. And yeah, I should really watch that again. That film's fantastic. I would love to see that on the big screen. Like, I would love if I could go to like a special screening of that someday.
That would be cool.
Rent out Film Scene and make them play me Sunshine. Yeah. I still haven't seen 28 Days Later.
Oh. You know, I don't know if I've ever watched it all the way through either.
I remember seeing it in the movie store. Like, I remember being like, ooh, I wonder what that is. And my mom would be like, that's scary. We can't watch that. I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like 28 Days Later and Sunshine, both in particular, are not... I don't see them around. Like, they don't seem super available.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you've got a point there.
Danny Boyle, what's happening?
But yeah, I should definitely watch that. And I should watch Devs.
I know, I didn't want to say it again, but at least...
I'm just terrible. I'm just terrible, and I don't watch anything. I've been better about movies, but terrible about TV shows. Before we wrap up for the day, I did just want to shout that next week, Emily Henry's new book, Funny Story, comes out in stores. You should pick up a copy or pre-order it. There's still time to pre-order it. She's incredible, and I'm really excited to read her new book, and I'm sure that it will make me very happy. So,
I know. I can't wait to hear your report.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited.
I can't believe it's time already.
I just want people to talk to about my favorite books.
I know. I can't wait for Will to read Sign Here. He's rereading Into the Wild again because that is like his core text as a human, which I deeply respect, but I can't wait for him to be done with that. So.
I've never read that. I think I watched the movie when I was young, like the movie that they made based on it, but
yeah.
Because that's the same author that wrote Under the Banner of Heaven, right?
Yeah, John Krakauer.
Yeah.
Huh? Yes.
Yeah, I should read that. I think my mom read that when I was little.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's a short book, though, so
yes,
it should be done with it soon.
Looks quite short, yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, I think that's all I've got. And we ended on a happy note, which is all you can ask.
Yeah.
thanks for joining us this week on Frenn Diagram. Thank you to Tyler Seek for the creation of our intro and outro music. Did you take any of our recommendations? Have any thoughts on the show? Let us know at frienddiagrampod@gmail.com, and we might read your email on a future episode. If you can, please take a moment to rate and review the show on your podcast app of choice, and we'll see you back here, same place next week. Bye for now.